Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mic'd in Style by Hollywood's Style. In today's episode, I sit down with Jenny to talk about her journey from fashion buyer to stylist. We get into how her experience in buying shaped her eye for styling, what the transition looked like, and how both roles influence what we see today in fashion. Don't forget to follow Mic'd in Style on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and follow us on social media at Hollywood's Style. You can also visit hollywoodstyle.com for more deep dives into the fashion world. Thank you, Jenny, for meeting with me once again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Before we get started, can you give kind of like a background, a little bit about yourself?
hmm So I'm originally from like outside of Philadelphia area. And my husband and I moved to Miami about 4 years ago. Professional background, I actually graduated with a finance degree and started working in insurance right out of college for like a year or two, which is crazy. And then right when we moved to Miami, I did kind of like a 180 into the fashion industry. And that is when I secured my buying job, which was amazing. And then after my buying job, I started as a director of wholesale for a belt brand called De Hanch. It's a really beautiful belt company. And then since then, I've kind of transitioned more into this styling kind of branding type position that I'm into today.
Oh, I love that. And for anyone at home that's listening and don't know what a buyer is, can you kind of explain what that is?
hmm So essentially, a buyer is someone who literally buys all the clothing that you would put into a store. Sometimes it's multi-brand stores, sometimes it's a monoline store. A lot of times it will be a buyer, if it's a smaller company or a smaller store, a buyer will buy across all different categories. If it's a larger store, sometimes buyers will focus in on one category, like accessories or jeans or something like that. So it's really just filling up the store and you're the actual person that buys the goods that go in the store.
When you were a buyer, can you like what was your day-to-day schedule look like? Can you kind of walk us through that?
Yeah, so it really depended on what I would call like the buying cycle. And so that cycle is kind of centered around market, which is like your New York Fashion Week, your Paris Fashion Week, Milan Fashion Week, stuff like that. Um, but before market, you would also do like some market prep. So that would be figuring out kind of what the trends are, where the market is, the buyers, of course, and then really kind of figuring out your own analytics and diving deep into what's been working, what's not working, finding the brands that you want to meet with, actually setting these buying appointments. And so when you're in market, you can go and touch and feel all the product and do your actual buy there. Aftermarket is when you kind of figure out exactly the quantities you're buying and also just making sure you're really getting everything together and getting your orders in order to make sure that everything's correct for when it comes in to ship. In between markets, there's a lot of, I would kind of say almost admin work. It's following up with brands, making sure that they're shipping on time for the stuff that you're getting in season. It's also really getting to know your customer. That's kind of the name of the game. That's why you buy in the first place. So being able to really have a good pulse on your customer is very important, especially if you're in like a specific market like Miami, like the store I was buying in only was in Miami. They did pop-ups in the Hamptons actually, but that's a whole different story. But it was mostly a Miami client. So really getting to know the client is very important as a buyer. There's a lot of kind of analytics that go into it. So it's seeing what's working and what's not working. Sometimes you can swap out of items that aren't working, which is great. Sometimes you can't. But you can also buy when you're in season. So if there's a style that's really working and you're noticing that it's selling well, you can purchase it and buy more of it in season. And so I'm trying to think what else. I mean, it's really getting to know a lot of all of the business and how the business works, and then being able to translate what your clients want to what you're buying.
I see. And being in Miami, like
It
what
is.
data are you looking at to kind of see and select, okay, this is definitely going to work here at this store. Like a lot of people are going to gravitate towards this here.
hmm So what we found is our clientele is actually very transient. It's a lot of people visiting Miami. So most of the time, a lot of times they are coming to buy for Miami specific weather. So that's your resort wear and stuff like that. But we do carry sweaters. We did carry sweaters too, and it's interesting because you're kind of buying for everyone. So that's why I feel like the Miami market in particular is kind of a little tricky because you do have your local client, but so many people are visiting. And so you really kind of have to buy, you have to run the gamut of what you buy, really.
I took a buying class at my school
Mm,
actually, and so a lot of math is involved in buying, right?
it is,
So,
yeah.
like, what kind of skill, what other skills would someone have when wanting to go into buying?
So it's kind of interesting, like you said, it's like a very kind of good combination of left brain and right brain. It's kind of what I like to call like the perfect combination of fashion and business, because you do really have to look at a lot of analytics and you have to make a budget and you have to, figure out margins and stuff like that. Um, but it's very right brain, obviously, in a sense that it's fashion and you can kind of infuse your own personal style into it as well. And it's just like this kind of perfect marriage, which I was really looking for when hopping into the fashion industry. And I figured out that buying would be like the perfect combination of those two things.
When you were doing your buying job and you have this like creativity, is that what kind of wanted you to merge into styling?
Yeah, so it's funny when I was doing the buying, a lot of times I would be working on the floor to, like I said, really get a sense of what the clientele was looking for. And a lot of times we would have stylists come in and I would always look at them and be like, oh my gosh, like that seems like such a fun job. I would love to do that. But I never really thought that that was something that I could do. And so once I kind of transitioned out of my wholesale position, which I did not love. I was not that was very heavy admin computer work, and it didn't take me long to figure out that that's not what I wanted to do. So once I started kind of transitioning into the more styling position, I kind of realized like this is something that is attainable and something that I think I would really enjoy.
What was the hardest part about transitioning from being a buyer to a stylist?
Um, that's a good question. Really, it's kind of just I think the hardest part of being a stylist in general is being able to get a really good clientele,
Mm.
and being able to build that book. So that's actually why I started at Kierna Zabet, which has 7 locations, and 3 of them are actually in New York, but they just opened one in Miami. So I now work with them on a part-time to kind of really get my foot in the door, aside from being on platforms like Emmy, which is a really great platform created by Erica Maltz, who came from, I think, Net-a-Porter. And that is a platform that allows basically clients to connect with stylists. So it's kind of like figuring out like your own way of making that work in a sense.
Yeah.
And everyone has their own way. You can, do it traditionally, like in a store or something like that, or you can kind of, utilize your own network and figure out how to make that work.
Yeah, and you touched a bit about it a few questions ago about engaging with customers and kind of seeing what they kind of gravitate towards. And in your styling page, you mentioned that your background in buying gives you that industry knowledge for styling clients. So how has your understanding for consumer behavior from buying influenced how you style clients?
Yeah, I think right off the bat, I have a really good product knowledge. And so that really helps. I know how a lot of things fit. Sometimes I know like a Goldie jeans, I know run small. And like, it's just like having that really good knowledge of knowing fabrics and knowing fits of things and knowing what things like the terminology even. It plays a really important part to being able to kind of level up your styling.
And with like your clients, do you only get clients from Emmy, or is there like a different way that you get clients?
It's it's kind of multiple channels. It really depends on like where you want to take it as a stylist. Um, a lot of times it is through referrals too. So if you have someone that you like working with, a lot of times they'll refer, their friend to you or something like that. And like I said, you can also go the traditional route and work in a store and kind of build your book that way. And sometimes you can transition that to your own book of business outside of the store as well. So it's really being able to find kind of what works for you.
Have you ever like been to an event and kind of give your 5 minute pitch on your stylist and then people are like, oh, like I can recommend you for this person or they'll want you to style them. Has that ever happened?
Yeah, I mean, it's you're I feel like kind of whenever you're out and about and at any sort of event, you're always
Yeah.
kind of pitching yourself in some way, shape, or form. So
Right.
it's definitely happened before. A lot of times, people go to networking events to connect like that. So it's easy to be able to connect with people on that level.
Is it nerve-wracking to kind of go up to people and pitch yourself not knowing how they're gonna take it?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it is, but you kind of just have to. It's easy because it's what I love to do. So it's not like it's a forced conversation. It's something that comes very naturally. So
Right.
yes, it's nerve-wracking talking to someone you don't know for the first time, because you don't know how they're gonna perceive you, but it's natural.
I feel like the fashion industry as a whole, there's a lot of misconceptions basically with the fashion
hmm
industry. And people usually don't really know what goes on behind the scenes and they just like, oh, you just style clothes, like you just pick clothes and then that's it. Could you kind of walk us through the process of pulling looks for clients, like from start to finish?
So I mean, it really kind of starts with getting to like there's a very much like a emotional intelligence quality to being a stylist. It's really getting to know the person and kind of figure out how they think about life in a sense, and that kind of directs them about how they think about fashion as well. So being able to understand that is like a really good way to be able to then translate that into making decisions regarding fashion. So it's really just understanding kind of what makes them tick and then being able to go and pull pieces that maybe you do like an analysis on their closet and figure out like the holes in their closet, what they're missing in their wardrobe, what they want, what they feel like they're missing, stuff like that. So yeah, understanding the client is very important.
Have you ever had to style a client where you would go to like a showroom, or is it strictly more just personal styling basis?
Yeah, you can go to a showroom. I mean, we had someone come into Karen Elizabeth the other day that brought their personal stylist with, and she was just pulling items for her like that. Or you can go to showrooms as well.
Obviously, being in the industry, very creative person, and you have a creative vision. How do you kind of find a medium with your clients on creativity when styling?
hmm Ideally, your client comes to you for your creative vision. Um, that would be like the perfect client, being able to work with someone who really admires your own personal style. So best case scenario, that's the situation. If not, again, it's really just putting honestly the client first because their needs or wants are why you're providing the service in the first place. So like I said, just really being able to understand where they're coming from and then kind of doing an analysis of their closet and seeing what they think they need.
Have you ever seen, because since Coachella is happening and everything, and there's like a bunch of videos about how clients or people on social media, they'll hire a stylist and then they just don't get an outfit that they
I
want.
saw
And
that
it's like
video.
this, you saw it?
Yeah, I did.
Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, has that ever happened to you? Like, what are your thoughts?
Um, Honestly, I just assume that they didn't take the time to get to know the client. Like, I don't know what the stylist process was. I don't know how much time they spent together. It clearly does not seem like that much time. If they're sending them so many outfits that they don't feel comfortable in. Um, so yeah, it's interesting. Everyone has their own approach. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but ideally you're able to work with the client if they don't like something, and be able to figure out why, and then figure it out and kind of fix it from there.
Yeah, I think their process was like just Pinterest. And
Yeah.
now that I'm thinking about it, people usually like Pinterest is kind of it's a vision board in a way. Like you can be look at something and be like, oh, I like that. I wouldn't wear it for myself, but I'm still gonna save it
hmm
because it just looks really good on someone else. So I think that's
Yeah.
been the issue. Yeah.
Yeah. And Pinterest is amazing, but that's the thing. It's a vision board, and you can, maybe take an aspect you like from there, like one aspect from there and incorporating to your outfit or one aspect from somewhere else. But yes, oftentimes if you're just copying an outfit you see from Pinterest, it's definitely not going to work for you because you probably have a different body type or your coloring is different or there's a lot of factors that go into why an outfit looks good on someone rather than looking good on you.
When someone is starting off or wanting to be a stylist, what's like a realistic standpoint financially for someone like entering into that field?
I would say either you would probably have to do it as a part-time job or like really hustle on the weekends, or your 5 to 9 type of situation, before you really start building a really good quality book of business. And that I am also kind of still in that boat where like I said, still am working part-time as a stylist at an established retailer. So I think being able to start there is also a really good starting place. I know a lot of people who actually started at like Intermix, which no longer exists, but was a really great store similar to kind of the one that I'm working at. And honestly, I would really recommend starting at like a place that carries multi-brands and not just one single brand because it really kind of gives you a lot more options. It gives your client a lot more options as well. And it just helps you kind of get more acclimated with more brands as well. So I think, if you really are wanting to start as a stylist, it really kind of is just getting, boots on the ground type of situation,
Yeah.
before you can really build out your own personal clientele. I would also definitely recommend like assisting any like established stylists as well in your area. That could also help just to see kind of how they run their business and stuff like that. But yeah, just kind of pulling as many levers as you can to really get yourself out there and get yourself, ready to go.
Yeah, and within styling, I feel like there's a lot of different sectors within it. Like you could be celebrity stylist, editorial, personal. Do you think it's better
Mhm.
to like stay niche or to be more broad?
Um, That's a good question. I mean, personally, I think more niche is probably better if you're gonna be like a fashion shoot stylist, if you're on set and styling like models. I think that is a very different game than it is doing private styling, private client styling. And I think if you're in that niche, then you should probably focus on that niche. But that's not to say if, you had a client come up that was outside of your niche that you shouldn't take it. I think it's really valuable to, see every kind of piece of the industry and be able to, kind of be a chameleon in that way. But I think being, niching down is probably better than being a jack of all trades.
I was on social media when I saw your TikTok when I was scrolling on my For You page,
Oh,
and that's
cool.
what made me want to like reach out and everything.
Oh, great.
What made you want to start posting on social media, like your outfits and everything?
I think at the very, very beginning, which is like, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, it was really just to like document my style because I loved styling myself. And just having a place to like keep that kind of image was really fun for me. But kind of as it evolved, and like I said, I started working in the fashion industry and started to have this kind of unique perspective, is when I really started to kind of like turn that branding into more of like I said, this having this unique viewpoint, this unique perspective, and being able to really kind of like figure out how to get that out into the world and almost like help people, see fashion or see how they style themselves in a different way. And so it really kind of turned into this more interesting, like, how can I take all this knowledge that I feel like I have that's some of it's learned, some of it's intuition, some of it is something I feel like I've been learning my whole life. I've always loved fashion, and be able to really kind of put that out in the world. And I mean, what's a better place to do that than social media? So I feel like that was like kind of the natural next step to the evolution of like my personal branding, and my just career in general.
You said something about kind of like intuition. That's what it was. Intuition. So how do you use your intuition with like forecasting when you were a buyer? Like how did that kind of play out?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. It's it's kind of just taking a pulse and then seeing kind of what resonates with you and then also kind of letting that play out over time a little bit. If it's something that is here and gone within a week or so, that you can kind of check that off your list. But if it's something that you've seen kind of building and it's something that you've seen building over long periods of time as well, I feel like that kind of gives you that little green light to say, okay, I think this is like going to be a big thing, or it's going to have a really big kind of undertow to the whole fashion industry in general.
Going back into the social media aspect, how has that impacted your styling career and opportunities?
I mean, it's huge, honestly. Being able to connect with people who are like you or being able to connect with clients um, is a really big deal. It really opens up a lot of opportunities. I mean, you can meet as many people as you can in person, but you're one person interfacing with one person at a time, you know? But when you do it on social media, you can reach a whole other audience, which is really amazing to meet friends even or to like I said meet clients or other like-minded people. So it's huge, it's huge for opportunities and it's huge for just being able to expand your network.
Do you think it's needed to have an online presence to succeed in styling today?
Yeah, I always struggle with that because I know everyone's like, "Oh, you have to be a online personality now." And no, I don't think it's needed, but I do really think it helps. Like I do really think it will kind of help take your own business to the next level. But I mean, that's not to say that you can't, completely run your business and start it from the ground up without having a social media presence.
What's one mistake that you see beginners make when trying to break into styling?
Um, Thinking that it's just personal shopping.
Hmm.
Because like I said, it's so much more than that. It's getting to know the market, it's getting to know the client, it's a lot of relationship management, honestly, not with just your client, but with stores or places you're doing polls with, or brands even. So it's making sure that you are organized and you kind of have all your ducks in a row and then are also willing to really put the work in. It's not just like I'm gonna find this shirt online and send it to my client and that's
Right.
it. It's a lot more involved than that.
No, yeah, I think that's another misconception within just styling as a whole. Like people just think like, oh, styling, like, oh, and also because of social media, that kind of,
Mhm.
day in the life. So just like, oh, I think this look good. Like, here you go. It's definitely
Yeah.
a lot more nitty-gritty that goes into it for sure.
Yeah, social media definitely dulls it down. It's a highlight reel, so yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
If you could go back to when you were starting in fashion, what would you do differently?
Um, I would start earlier because like I said, I started in the insurance industry. I think I would have
Okay.
majored in it. For me, I didn't think I thought that if anything, I would go to business school and be able to get a good job from there, but I think like I wish I would have committed earlier to fashion as a whole. My business background is amazing. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I love the school that I went to as well, but I think if I committed earlier, I think I would have been a couple steps ahead.
When did you do any type of internships within fashion or
I
you just kind
didn't.
of jumped in? Oh, wow, that's really good.
I got yeah, I got very, very lucky. I did a lot like once I decided to make that jump into the fashion industry and really start pursuing that,
Yeah.
I did a lot of work outside of the job that I was in at when I was working in insurance,
Mhm.
to kind of prepare myself. I took some classes and read textbooks and stuff like that. And that was enough to be able to get me into the buying position. Thankfully, I mean, it was kind of like a perfect situation. They were kind of looking for someone um, to fill that role, and I kind of had, a semi decent background that they were looking for, and it didn't have to do with fashion because it was an entry level role basically when I first started. So it kind of ended up working out perfectly.
When you were a buyer, did you use any type of like platform, like Fashion Snoops or like Future Snoops or any of
Um,
that?
Platform for what? There's a lot
To
of platforms I
sorry
use. That's okay.
for forecasting to kind of see what was on the runways and stuff like that, so you can kind of build that into your stores and everything. Did you
Yeah,
use
so we didn't. It was a lot of just kind of like my own personal market research.
it?
Um, only because a lot of times, sometimes those tend to be expensive too.
Mm.
So a lot of times I think larger retailers will utilize those, but that's not to say, your own research doesn't kind of provide the same role. And I think not that, not that these forecasters aren't doing a good job, but I think that you can kind of pull a lot of information on your own and be able to kind of come to similar conclusions.
When you were doing research, like what were the kind of like what were you researching? Like what were you typing into Google to kind of research for your specific area and demographic?
A lot of times I would see something that I would think kind of like what we were talking about earlier that I would think would be trending, and I would just kind of do a deep dive on that topic and see if this is something that has trended before, if it's something that has been trending for a while, if it's something that is starting to kind of take off. So it was really kind of finding a topic that kind of piqued my interest and kind of going from there.
Okay, nice. Okay, just a few fun questions to wrap everything up. If you had to wear one item every single day, what would it be and why?
One item. I mean, my mind just goes to like a great pair of jeans. I feel like it's such a good, easy styling tool, and I feel like it can fit so many different scenarios in your life to
Yeah,
just throw on a good pair of jeans. So I think something that is just a great fitting, comfortable pair of denim would be something that I would definitely wear every day.
for sure. I totally get that.
Hmm.
What is your favorite designer right now?
That's such a loaded question. I think honestly, I've been really loving Chloe. I
Oh,
think
okay.
um bohemian, that type of flowy kind of vibe is something that I'm just starting to get into with my personal style, and I'm kind of seeing my style evolve in like that direction in a sense. Um, so I really love what Chloe's been doing lately.
Do you like all the fringe and everything too? Is that
Yeah, the
yeah.
fringe is awesome. I'm like so happy that's trending right now because there's so many amazing pieces on the market.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, anything that's kind of like that boho, I love earthy tones. Um,
Wade?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So love it all.
All right, last question. What is a trend that you want to see come back?
Um, I personally really love like the early 70s in general. And I think there is a lot of aspects that are infused and like trends going on today, kind of like we just mentioned, the suede and the earth tones, and that kind of like hippie vibe is really kind of coming back. I think there's always a little bit of that infused in fashion and in trends as kind of time evolves, but yeah, just that era in general, like a good pair of bell bottoms is just like so amazing to me.
Yeah. I can totally picture you like wearing some good bell bottoms for sure.
Yeah, and like a groovy print shirt or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great.
Well, thank you so much for meeting with me. I'm so appreciative that you took the time out of your schedule to chat with me.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. This is a great conversation.
All right. You have a good day.
Thanks, you too.
Bye.